Welcome to the MMHP and the 989, channeling all styles and eras of Michigan music history. Recorded live from the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located inside the Bay County Historical Museum.
From the city by the bay.
Featuring Dr. J, Fred Reif, Mr. Mike, and your host, Scott Baker. Brought to you by the 989 Podcast Network and the Michigan Rock Legends Hall of Fame, located at the Bay County Historical Society Museum at 321 Washington Avenue, Bay City, Michigan.
Whoa, we are
All right,
here
let's go.
at the Rock Legends Hall of Fame, and everything is fired up and looking good here on a cold Saturday, but beautiful outside. One of those.
It is cold.
Yeah, one of those definitely Michigan days. And we've got multi-talented artists that goes all the way back to some classic 70s stories that we were going to share today. But even more importantly is where he became a teacher. He's a continuous scholar of music and artistry. He's took it upon himself in the last few years to really broadcast his art as a big circle, not just the music, but world music based, jazz music based. I remember him as a classic rock musician and 80s musician. And some people will remember these 70s stories from Bay City Central. But Bryan Rombalski's in the house. How you doing, Bryan?
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh,
We don't get to see each other that much. So
no.
it's nice.
And you were, as a growing musician in this area, one of my earliest inspirations.
Oh, well,
Just from running into you here and there, and the fact that you wanted to embrace the music talk as knowing me as a journalist at that time, as well as the guitar as a artwork, not just a
well,
guitar.
thank you. People can't see this, but we're fist bumping.
Yeah. And we got Dr. J and Sir Fred in the house. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Doing
good.
great. Nice to
Good.
meet Bryan. I'd never met him before,
You
so
do?
really like your book, your visitations, and very impressive art.
Oh.
Are you a art teacher by any chance, or?
Okay, it's like music. I study like the history of art and as well as music, and I've instructed people in art as well as when I do my music lessons. And I've taught guitar for it's going on like 38 years now.
Oh, wow.
So intermittently, I'll have a student, because it's all encompassing, isn't it? The way that I choose the words for the poetry, the ruminations that I do, and I deal with meditation, all right? And whether or not what culture you deal with, whether or not it's Judaism or Christian, like if you're a Christian or a Hindu or a Buddhist, all right? I'm really fascinated by the science of the mind, all right? And levels of consciousness and what you do to prepare yourself for to make yourself available to creativity. So when it comes to you, you're able to give it voice.
Well, you're taking this spirituality of music then, basically, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we're going to have to get together because I'd like to share with you that video series we talked about on Michigan history that I'm
Okay.
doing.
Yeah.
I can't crank it up today. We need one of our technicians at the museum in order to put it up, but somewhere down the line we'll do that.
Okay, absolutely.
Yeah, great.
I had a few experiences in my life that showed me that altered states help to produce creative means, all right? Undeniably, all right? I don't know if you ever want to get into any of those. all
Sure.
right? But
Something we can bring up here throughout the conversation. Sprinkle it in, and
Yep.
because your depth and knowledge of it as a whole, and it came through as a teacher. And I see that in how you post on Facebook and how you're everything you do is thought out before you do it, and I think that's one thing that people will see when they see your music or see your artwork or your posts, because you spend a lot of time putting thought and effort into every, whether it's a post on Facebook or
Yeah.
whether it's an art piece.
wow, thanks for the notice. It's everything has intent. You know what I mean? We're especially how we're older now, all of us sitting here, and through loss and all different types of things, it even makes you ruminate even more. You know what I mean? Take stock. And if we're fortunate enough to express ourselves to others, and whatever our talents that have been given to us and what we've chosen to develop, we have an obligation, I think, to try to make this world a little more peaceful, or at least a little more tolerant, and a little more compassion.
I couldn't agree with you more. We're in desperate need of a lot more kindness in this world.
And at least tolerance, for crying out loud.
Yeah, and I'm sure you're probably a believer in this as well. What goes around comes around.
Yeah.
And when you're being kind to others, that moves on, and sometimes it comes back to you as well. Right. It's not like you're being kind because you expect a reward. It's just the way you should be to make the world a better place to live for everyone.
And it's a competent and a thoughtful use of your vehicle, and that's how I think of what all these 4 vehicles are. All right, so it's a gift.
Well, there's a great satisfaction in doing that. And
it's humbling too, isn't it?
Well, it is. I mean, because there's, so much to learn and so much to share, and so much to appreciate. In the limited time we're here. Really.
True.
Absolutely.
True that. Yeah. Well, I'm gonna since these two fellas haven't really got to know you over the years as well as I have, let's go back to the early times and bring them up to date, because it will drag them right through that late 70s period that I want to hit on too. But where was your inspiration? Where were you born? And give us a little bit of background.
Okay, Saginaw, Michigan. I was born. I started to gravitate toward music at a very young age. My mom had a record collection that had everything from Frank Sinatra to Ray Conniff to Engelbert Humperdinck to remember all the, you know what I mean? And she had an album by Floyd Kramer, and it was Floyd Kramer Gets Organized, and one side was piano and one side was organ. And I actually wore out a rocking chair listening to his album, closing my eyes and rocking, so the bottom fell out of the rocking chair.
Wow.
I mean, I would actually trance out when I listened to music right away. So it was, a pretty powerful vehicle for me. So
did you prefer his piano style or the organ style? Or
the piano style, far.
Oh, he
far
had
more.
He had a very distinctive style.
Those grace notes.
Yes, exactly. That it was very influential in country music, especially.
Oh, absolutely.
But
and him and Chet
but
Atkins,
also but pop music as well. He was back in the days when you had that crossover in radio that sadly has disappeared today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's ironic is I play guitar more like piano than I do regular guitar, because I'm always using inversions and chords. And there's this huge thing that's popular now. People are doing a lot of linear playing, and I think more power to them. It's wonderful. But I don't hear music that way. I hear the bass notes, the chords in the middle, and the melody, and I hear them moving. All right. So I actually, it's more like piano for me on guitar.
Well, that goes back to what we kind of talked about before we started the podcast today, is the lack, and not the lack, but the loss of how people listen. How people don't hear all the parts of a song, or all the parts. It's all visual now, and it's all a star, or it's all the thing that's happening at the moment, as opposed to all the pieces of the puzzle.
An influencer and things. And I understand it's a whole different way to present yourself. And being an old dog, I'm kind of dragged kicking and screaming into certain things. All right, because I have to watch out. I'll just hide away and work on my music or my art. All right.
Yeah.
I mean, and COVID was a real big instigator of that, because I couldn't do gigs. You couldn't do gigs. Right?
Yeah.
So I just burrowed away, and I just really worked hard. But to get back to what you're saying, sorry, the early influences were music like that. Okay. And then I found out about the Beatles because a cousin gave me, in one sleeve there was a couple albums stuffed in it. The Beatles' first 2 albums, all right, and I just totally freaked.
How old were you when that? Yeah.
Probably 10, 11, 12, something like that.
So
I saw the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Oh, you did.
Even when I was little.
Just what I was going to ask you, right?
It was electrifying. I just knew something was going on, even though I couldn't put it into words exactly.
Right.
And then the Jimi Hendrix experience, and then I had a friend in high school said, "Hey, here's 2 albums I'm going to lend you. You need to listen to these." That was Led Zeppelin 1 and 2. All right? So then it turned into, this avalanche of kids that I used to play with in the neighborhood didn't see me as much because I was practicing. All right.
Nobody saw you as much from there on out, I don't think, Brian. I got lucky to run into you at gigs. You were Mr. Hideaway, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah. True.
So did this translate into a band?
Well, what happened was I actually would hold a broom and sing and make up songs and have a couple friends of mine in the garage when we were little kids. have kids come over and we'd just be making stuff up, all right? So something was happening, something was going on. And then in high school, I was approached by Joe Ortega, and he, and Brian Henke, and, Kurt Stout, and we formed a band, all right?
You guys all were in high school together?
I was just getting out of high school. I was working, you know how you work like the last year of school and part-time while you're still going to school.
Yeah, my wife did that.
Yeah.
Me too.
At the mall, all right? So I remember I was at a friend's house and Joe saw me play and we started talking and that turned into Couture, all right? And then...
Can you spell that?
Couture, Couture. It means fashion.
So all these years I've been calling it couture or
couture,
something.
Couture.
Okay.
But you might even be correct.
No, I never heard.
That's the right way. Hut was an haute couture. That's the
There you go.
cutting edge of fashion.
Yeah,
You know,
so that's why it was chosen.
Right.
A gentleman that gave the name to the band was into fashion, so that's one of the
Was
reasons.
Steve Hornack in that band?
He came later. After I left. I was in the band for like about 1.5 to 2 years, and then after I left, and then he was in different bands. I think Valentine and different things like that with Joe and stuff. So
He was on the curtails of Bryan originally, which is pretty interesting.
yeah. So what was really humbling and really made me take stock was we warmed up for Van Halen. All right, in Bay City, it was like 23,000 people or something.
This would have been at Ingalls Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll never forget being on stage, and it wasn't the heat of the day. There was actual palpable energy that you could feel, all right, on stage. So I was like, I guess you could say overwhelmed, all right?
Yeah.
And also seeing Eddie Van Halen when he was super, he was healthy and, you know what I mean? And it wasn't, I thought he was brilliant. He's like Mozart of our time in rock, all right?
Yeah.
And to watch that up close, to meet him briefly and to listen to that sound, they called it the Brown sound.
Yeah.
And then we warmed up for like Cheap Trick and Leslie West from Mountain. And I'll never forget when he took my amp and the other guitar player's amp and wired them together, our Marshalls, we had full stacks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was that, that Mississippi Queen, that.
Yeah.
Well, the fattest,
we're
biggest
talking,
tones, yeah.
because now a lot of days guys have all these nice little rigs and everything, but we're talking like when you used to, even some of these amps didn't even have master volume knobs. So you had to, you know what I mean? I had to throw blankets over my amp sometimes in certain clubs or you get
Too much.
chastised for it, So, but that was pretty cool. But
Where
then
was that show at?
Which one?
The Mountain.
Oh, somewhere in Michigan. Sorry, I don't know.
Was that Saginaw?
I don't think so.
No.
Lansing or something.
Lansing,
like that.
okay.
But then we warmed up for Cheap Trick, and I'll never forget because they came out on stage and watched us. Okay, and they were super kind. Whereas like when we warmed up for UFO, you couldn't walk in the hallway when they were around.
Oh, really?
Stuff.
They
Yeah.
had limitations.
Yeah, so it was. But the thing is to be in direct contact with guys that were really good at what they do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, I was taking stock because I'm going, I just want to study. I was lucky to have a couple years of music theory in high school. They had an experimental class, and there was only 2 kids in the class, me and another guy. And I learned how to do my classical, classical harmony, my modes, my scales, arpeggios, how to also like for orchestra, when you have to write out parts and transpose.
Mm-hmm.
I learned to do that,
Wow,
all right?
that-
Even before I was in Couture.
What school was that? That's
This is Eisenhower High School, but now it's called Heritage.
very forward thinking. That
Yeah.
you usually, that's.
Yep.
Music is never a priority, unfortunately, in a lot
Yeah.
of public school systems.
And that's actually a really good point because I can't tell you how that helped formulate my whole thoughts of playing, because I could look at things, know what the key signature was, have alternate ideas, play what scales were available to me. Of course, there's always time to get better at it and learn more, And when I moved to Toledo, Ohio, after I quit Couture, I worked at Rock and Roller Records for a while.
Did you?
Yeah.
That's classic.
Like assistant manager there. And after I remember Jim Gilson, who was the singer in Couture, he moved to Toledo, and I talked to him on the phone. He said, "You got to move here. You got to move here. We'll play together, do acoustic stuff like what you do." You know. So I ended up doing that, and I ended up meeting an incredible man. His name is Gene Parker, and his group plays at the Toledo or Detroit Jazz Fest. And this guy played flute, vibes, marimba, saxophone, piano, and he was given grants for his teaching to, I think, one through the Smithsonian. And I spent like 2.5 years with him studying jazz harmony. All right. So the first thing he did before we got into the harmonies, he made me listen to the different eras of jazz. Through the big band, I took notes. I boxes of cassettes. All right.
That was how you took notes?
Yeah.
Kind of recorded the sessions?
Yeah. And so what I did is he was so influential because his standard was so good. And, you know, Toledo's the home of Art Tatum. I mean, there were some great players, and I taught at Ron's music. He's passed now. And then Durdell's music for like 10 years. All right. So that was 15 years of teaching there for me. All right. While I was still studying. Then I studied classical guitar with Rob Warden. And so I was and then I had this huge, because I remember seeing King Crimson live. It was around the time of the Beat.
Yeah.
And
the Adrian Belew era.
And I would go to the libraries and look up like transcriptions and stuff, all right? And I studied African music, West African music primarily, because Steve Reich, the classical composer, he was a big influence. And you could tell Crimson was influenced by that too.
Mm-hmm.
So Brazilian music, European classical music. I was studying all these forms because I had this in my mind. I knew it would take me many, many years. But what I was going for was a world prayer music.
Mm.
So all the music, even if I'm not a master of all these styles, at least I could get to some of these fundamentals, understand them, assimilate them, and then produce some kind of music that represents world music.
Yeah. No, I want to stop right there. And what year did you leave Couture, and what year did you move to Toledo?
Well, let me
This
say,
sounds like 82-ish would be.
Yeah, because I graduated in 76, and then I was
Where'd
in
you
the
go to
band,
school?
Eisenhower.
Eisenhower, okay. So,
And then a couple years I was in the band. I mean, then there's a couple more years after that, and then I moved to Toledo, Ohio for 16 years.
Probably 80 or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because there's...
And that's when 87 is when I put out my first project,
Right.
Nozomi. And that was, oh my gosh, the drummer that was on that, Paul Neef, a phenomenal drummer. We're talking big band, everything, right? So he was into this world music approach that I was thinking of. And then Eric Bilger played with the symphony. So this was like no like samples or anything. He had to, when I wrote out parts for the vibes and marimba, he would actually have to do them in real time, all right? And some of those were kind of, remember Reich's music's kind of hypnotic, and you have to do kind of a repetitive thing. It sets you in like a different, like
almost meditative for you.
Yeah. Thanks for the word. Yeah. So that was an interesting project because that's what I was trying to do even then.
And you didn't know it at the time, though, right? Is that later that you
I just
came?
had a yearning. Yeah. So that didn't come the ability to explain. But after teaching now for 38, almost 40 years, I've had to sit down, and what I found really informative was, okay, let's say we're sitting together as a lesson. I have to take the view that I'm looking out at your eyes, all right? And what's it feel like to not know this particular subject in this way? And then the more you have empathy with others, you get to understand there's different ways you present information to people so that they can assimilate it properly.
Mm-hmm.
That's a
art of
lot
teaching
to that.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's humbling, but that's, how many years now? So it's kind of, and then you learn about people and they share with you, and their hard times, their good times and stuff. It's very humbling. Since I never had children, it's almost like an extended family in a way.
Mm, absolutely.
Bryan, was there a particular world music artist, let's say outside of the United States, that you found particularly inspiring or?
Yep. Oh yeah. There's quite a few of them. And then it crosses into the visual too. Some of the artists from different countries, okay. But Youssou N'Dour, all right, who had done stuff with Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, David Byrne also, right?
Yeah. Umu Sangera. She's like the princess, the queen in West Africa. So if you listen to her voice has been used in soundtracks and different things like that, okay?
You ever hear the guitar playing of Diblo Dibablo?
De Gary, I've heard.
Sukus.
Yeah, there you go. And there's one from Madagascar called De Gary, and he's
Right.
scary good. He's like,
Got all those.
yeah, I have an extensive collection too. Isn't it amazing?
too.
And that's how I approach guitars more rhythmically. All right. So when I combine the element of piano harmony with, you know, the different, let's say, Brazilian rhythms, the West African rhythms. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. No, it's funny because when I first saw you, it's going out to the bars and seeing cover bands do their thing. And I remember seeing Talking Heads and you know, more interesting covers.
Yeah.
And that would have been in the early 90s when I think we met.
Yeah.
I just remember walking into O'Hare's or something and you and what was her name on the bass?
Susan Light.
Susan Light, yeah. Just tearing it up, and
Susan
you
Light.
guys intertwined like in a way no other bar band did.
Yeah.
And it was
That's interesting to hear you say that. That's
Yeah.
cool.
And I just got the visual of walking in and seeing that, and we were, I don't know, it was just one of those things that took your breath away because you didn't think of it like that. You just thought you were coming in and music was going to happen,
Right.
or you were going to see a song you might like, and it was a whole other thing to see interactions.
Yeah.
And Susan's fantastic herself.
Well, she's like a little Yoda in herself
Is she still
because
playing?
I don't know. She was playing some more like heavy music, and it was really good.
She
when I
was into
heard
that
her.
late 90s
Yeah.
heavy stuff.
I used to play
Most of
with
my
her
stuff.
brother Jerry.
Oh, okay. Oh,
She used to be on Facebook. I haven't heard from her in many
Right,
years.
I haven't seen her on there lately.
yeah. Her rhythm is so tight. Her pocket was so good.
What
so
band
that's
was
where Perpetrators.
Perpetrators. That was it.
Yeah, I remember O'Hara's. There you go.
There you go.
People come out and go. I'll never forget this. One guy comes up to me. He goes, "You play kind of funny." And I thought that was pretty good. He was kind of, I like it. He goes, but I just don't know what it is. What you're doing. I
Well,
thought,
it's
that's
pretty
good.
unusual for a bar. You know, to have that kind of music, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Especially
on
O'Hare's.
here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Couture, let's take it back. I wanna stop you. Those you guys gigged all over the state. Did you put out any original music?
Up in Canada, throughout out west. Okay.
All
And
over?
it was the deal where, remember, this is how you could make a living back then.
Yeah.
Or a meager living. So what you do is just, the band, we'd schlep our stuff and, go to the next city or whatever
Yeah.
and try to find out where to do your laundry and where to eat,
Right.
Did you put out
But at
music?
least you could make a living.
Yeah,
You can't
yeah.
do that anymore,
Yeah.
I don't think.
Well, a lot of us would still be living with a girlfriend or folks. Come on now, I'll be honest with you.
So did you guys put out any original music then?
Well, see, now here's the deal. Even at that show, there was kind of contention within the band because we ended up playing all originals, but we ended with Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin.
Yeah.
All right. And then, of course, everybody freaked then. And I thought that was pretty brave because we didn't have anything out. And I really didn't have a say in it. And it was just, but yeah, we recorded.
That was at the Van Halen show
Yeah.
in Central?
Yeah.
It was 78?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So the thing that's weird, though, is we went in and recorded songs. We wrote songs. We wrote material. But I think the three principles that wanted to invest was kind of discourse where it didn't come to fruition. So
So they're sitting somewhere, your
yeah,
music?
somewhere. Yeah.
You don't have a copy?
Nope.
Wow.
Were
Joey?
were you involved in I have this CD by Susan Light, or she's in a band,
Yeah.
and it's all percussion. It's kind of world music.
No, but I know what you're talking about. She was associated with somebody that actually had been to West Africa,
Okay.
and they had a group, and they were
Yeah,
doing
it's a
different
big
rhythmic
group.
parts. I remember that. Yeah, it was pretty cool. I think that's one reason why we got along so well too. It's because of those kind of influences.
Her ears were really wide open like yours were.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's a great player.
Yeah, I'd like to hear what she's up to. It's funny thinking all these memories here.
Well, maybe that's somebody we could investigate
Yeah.
for a guest on an upcoming show. That would be
Absolutely,
great.
absolutely. So Couture went on. You went to Toledo. You did your studying. You
Yep.
turned
And
into
played
world
in duos, folk stuff. Then had a little band with Jim called The Risk. Pop music and stuff like that.
band with Jim
Yeah, Jim Gilson.
Gilson. Okay,
And
in Toledo.
Yep, in Toledo.
So this stretches down to Ohio for a little bit of your
Yep.
live history here.
And then a lot of teaching. So that was 16 years. And then after that, I moved to Chicago for a short while. Stayed with my brother because I thought I wanted to study printmaking there. All right. And before all this, while I was in Toledo, at the Toledo Museum of Art, I studied painting, watercolor, photography, drawing. So I was, when you're teaching lessons, you're working later in the evening. So at the time, my wife, while she was working on my drawing or working on music, then I would teach at the end of the day, So I was trying to formulate all these things. I had this plan of studying printmaking in Chicago. That didn't work out. So then when I moved back to Michigan, I was only there a year. Then my folks had my stepfather, he owned a hardware store in Sanford, okay? And so I came back, and they purchased a Lakeside Market. It was on 30 up there, and I worked with them for so many years. And I think they were really thoughtful in the sense that they wanted to see if that I'd be doing fine. But I'm a musician, I'm a visual artist, and this is just gonna be what I do.
So you
I
came
can't
back.
help it,
You came back in the '90s then?
Yeah, and then taught at. There was a totally cool music. Fred's passed away now. He moved to Florida, but he had a store, and I started teaching again. And then I went over to Mid-Michigan Music.
Yeah.
Another 10 years there, and then I moved over to Fulkerson's Music.
Okay.
And I've been there for quite a while too. So.
And now you live in Midland, Michigan, right?
Yeah, I have a home in Sanford.
Sanford, okay.
But yeah.
I remember you were teaching out
but I'm moving about the
Midland.
Tri-Cities, so
Yeah.
it's kind of like, yeah.
Do you drive to teach, or do they come to you?
I drive to teach. I like having a studio. There's something about the mentality is when you get in the studio and you're surrounded by objects that inspire you, you know what I mean? And,
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean? And it's just like this.
Yeah.
There's a vibe, right? And
It's
then
putting
also,
connections together.
and then also when I get in there, I'm there to work. I'm there to practice, or I'm there to read, or I'm there to, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then I can have some kind of juxtaposition of the outside world too, and try to be there for, my partner, when I'm outside of it, you're trying to learn this balance, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even now I still have to, because I can be so absorbed in what I do.
Did you tell me early on when I met you, introverted kind of feeling? Because you're more like, I want to keep studying. You have more to learn, you more to do. That was your MO. I remember when Facebook came on, and I said, Bryan, you need to get more stuff out there. You're like, I have a hard time getting into that. And eventually you use that as a tool for your teaching. And because that was when I was putting Muddy Gumbo together, when we were trying to interconnect some stuff with
thanks
Earl.
for saying something, because, no, you're right. And look at how it's changed so much for us too, with people online, the whole thing. And now with influencers and the whole deal. There was a really popular guitar player right now, and he was talking about it's a little bit of work now, because not only is he working on his playing, he's got to work on how he advertises himself. I mean, you don't have to, but it is a big thing.
My friend Adam Levy, Nora Jones, Tracy Chapman, he's
a great player.
Yeah, we saw him at the Jazz Fest last fall, and him and I have been talking about some stuff lately, and he said, my whole world is consumed of putting my week together and planning out. He edits his own videos for Instagram.
Wow.
He does all his promotions. Everything is in-house. So, like, I said, we're coming to Detroit. He says, well, from 10 to so-and-so, I'm going to be filming videos for my YouTube channel and for this. And then I'm doing my Patreon channel. His weeks are broken up as a live playing musician into his advertisements that run through the week, or his inspirational pieces just from social media.
Right.
That's part of the job now.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and he's like as pro as you get,
Yeah.
And it's like, wow.
And when I play out, it's important for me to play out, because I get students that way. People come up and want to take lessons, which is wonderful, so, and then by, it's spreading out online, But I'm in this phase now though, because I'm teaching 4 days a week. I'll be semi-retired for the rest of my life probably. I mean, because I have to work being a musician and a visual artist. But the thing is, City Forest, the Tridge, this nature. My partner now, she grew up like camping and doing all this stuff. So we've visited all the the Great Lakes, and there's this energy and all that, you know what I mean? So even though I spent most of my life in a room, all right, seriously, all right, like just practicing thousands and thousands of hours and drawing like all day long, taking a break to go to the bathroom and eat, and then doing it again, right? and reaching the state, all right, that I actually live in that state now, all right, and because of that, I'm actually, sometimes my senses are more acute. So when I do visit these places or sites or like this, there's an energy to it. You know what I mean? And if you make yourself available and sensitive to it, open up to it, you know how you're not trying to force your personality on things?
Yeah.
You're welcoming, and pretty amazing stuff happens.
Those words you just used were some of the first words you shared with me, like on like a private friend thing.
Really?
Like saying, yeah, just because that was when we were talking about like Miles Davis,
Oh.
the quintet.
We both love the
yeah.
second great
And it was
quintet.
like, just open yourself to it, Scott. Just absorb that, and it was almost like hearing it verbatim how
wow.
you shared with me back then, in the
Cool.
late '90s or whatever. But,
Yeah.
that's cool, man. That's you took it on as a lifestyle,
Yeah.
student and a teacher, and so everything's an experience to you, which is you've filtered through all your art with, and we got a book here today too.
Yeah. It's called Visitations, and why it's called Visitations is this explores the male-female energy, and what it is an analogy for left and right, up and down, black and white, man, woman, everything. You know how two hemispheres of the brain, everything is like dualist, Republican Party, Democratic Party, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But the idea is, how do we look at something towards unity, or at least some kind of acknowledgement of each other? So that's what's happened. Is I found out through meditation, all right, through this process that I do, like alpha, beta, theta, delta, the brain waves, all right? Theta is very creative. So if I'm allowing myself to be in a certain point, I have visitations, all right? These things are almost like things that I just talk to or see. All right, not to freak anybody out, but it's just like having a conversation with you. All right, but the words aren't always as easy to grasp. What you have to do is, you know what I mean? You have to listen really intently.
Or express, right?
Express. But then, as I'm doing this process, I started working on these drawings very intently, but I wanted to incorporate some kind of symbols with this that were representative of a bigger thing, all right? More than one dimension. So to me, there's another dimension that accompanies this. There's a Scott talking to me, but there's an energetic Scott, all right? And that architecture is just as real as you are, all right, right now. And this, to me, it's like just channels on a radio, all right? You and I, all of us here are on this frequency right now. But the thing is, we can learn to like feel different. Like cymatics, I started studying that a bit, and that was like, how come these monks and these people that allow themselves this really intense and quiet time see these energetic patterns, all right, that match up these mandalas from cultures all over the world, all right? So the thing is, for me, is allowing these, having a dialogue with those, and then collecting the poetry over the last 20 years, on and off.
So you took poetry that you had written, and then you paired it with the photo that you drew.
Thought was most appropriate for it.
Which people can see a lot of your work almost every day right now on Facebook.
On Instagram or
on
Facebook.
Instagram.
Or
Okay. Yeah, because
Next.
you're always putting out something new.
Yeah.
Where can people get this book at?
They can get a hold of me either through those social media sites, all right?
Is it at a store right now, or are you able
I
to
just
get
sell
it
online.
just of your own? Just come see
And
me,
then
and I'll give it
gigs,
to you.
when I'm playing gigs.
Do you take them to gigs with like a CDs we used to do? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, hawking our wares.
There we are. So this would be reaching sort of an altered state
Yeah.
to an extent.
Can I read
So I think a
something
lot
out
of people, when you say altered state, right away they're thinking about taking a drug.
Yeah.
But you're being reaching these things without having to rely on it. In fact, drugs probably would get in the way.
Right, and that would be, a distortion.
You're talking
Yeah.
about a meditative clarity.
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely.
Which is, I did want to just come back to that too. Like, let's go on to that realm now. So, take us into that.
Okay, out of Visitations,
Uh-huh.
I had a foreword written by a wonderful friend of mine, a drummer that was a teacher also in Toledo, Ohio. And he's gone on to be quite a teacher, all right, and educator. His name is Louis Simon. He wrote a wonderful foreword for me and then asked me questions concerning the art, all right? So, and can I read you?
Absolutely. We would love that.
He said, could you discuss the importance of female or feminine figures in your work? And I said, it's a need to explore and appreciate the feminine aspect / principle to support and learn to form one. And then it says here, what would you say are the main themes of your visual art? What led you to them? And I said, to produce a form of contemporary sacred art through reflection, it becomes a shared meditative exercise. And it says, what do you hope to communicate with your art? To show a journey that reaches for a universal statement, a language, a meditation on duality, and a resolution. Right? So that's, some of these, like, can I read you one?
Please.
Sure, do it.
Okay, I'll meet you on the road of caring and reflection. I'll meet you at the sea with its depth of dreams. I'll meet you with open arms at a forest edge, and I'll greet you as someone who comforts me.
Oh, very nice.
And then there's what the real important thing was, okay, she ran the tip of her finger from my inner arm up to the palm of my hand, saying, the river flows through you. You know that, don't you? And then this right here is Tonglen, and the Buddhist practice of you inhale the discord of others, all right? And you exhale, hopefully, what will be more purity in this world.
And not just alive in this world, but from the past as well, as you show in those fish.
Yeah. And that here, now this is, to me, it's an actual force. The unity is this, it's this, this muse, all right? And I'll read you this. It goes, the muse danced right in front of me, spinning and laughing and stopping to eye me carefully. You think you can withstand the energy of the creative fire? Do you believe in the unity of souls? Clicking the bells between her fingers, she breathed deeply and returned to movements that seemed to echo the rhythm of the earth itself. So
Beautiful, Bryan.
Yes, very
Thank you for bringing this.
inspirational.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
thanks.
indeed.
But that's what it's for, meditation, hopefully that people can just ruminate with and just sit with,
Man, thank you, Bryan. That's just beautiful.
Yeah, and I think it, gets you to think about the creative spirit.
Oh, absolutely. And how to be
that's what you want, right?
and respective of it.
Exactly.
Yeah, and welcoming of it, because it really wants to be there.
It does, and it's funny how it just will come to you, just like out of nowhere, out of the ether or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I took these classes with Robert Fripp for 1 week, and he said one thing about music sometimes chooses unlikely characters to give itself form or express itself, And so to me, it's just like, if I have fears, and I have things I have to work on, just like everybody, right? But hopefully we acquire some tools that help us, unite a little more and have respect for each other.
Can you tell us a little bit more about these classes with Robert Fripp?
Yeah, it was the beginning stages, not the advanced ones. But I went to Claymont Court in Virginia. All right.
What year?
Oh, geez, sorry. This is like
90s?
Toledo, yeah. And it was early on. You had to write an essay, and then he chose people for the class. All right, like a short little statement why you wanted to be there. And when you went, they had classes in something called the Alexander technique. All right, which is body awareness. And I learned something that transformed my playing. All right. And I'll show you right now if you want to know.
Yeah,
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Take your finger, push it into your leg. Now lift your finger up. That's an improper movement. Put your finger, push it down, and relax your finger. That's a completion of the first moment, not two separate actions. So when I play, and you watch me play, my fingers don't lift up like this. They just move really
Fluidly.
less use of energy.
Were the classes held at a university?
Well,
Or-
it's like this. It looked like an old building, and it had all these rooms, and it also had like what would have been like an area where like where we'd move horses around. You know what I mean? But it was like a round building. Okay, just an old place that they had acquired. All right, and really interesting because you have a meditation awareness class in the morning where you'd feel your feet or your knees or your legs or your neck and your arms, and you feel where tension is, all right, or just place attention on those areas. And pretty beneficial because you're more aware of your being, all right.
Yeah.
And then they'd have art classes or guitar classes and the dynamics of working with others, all right. So even though I didn't feel the need to his art form is a pick, right? I'm a fingerstyle player mostly. I teach with pick and can play with pick, but that's not my realm. I don't go for the linear thing for myself personally. I like the fingerstyle, but I learned to really appreciate it. And his being too, when someone would play something and he would say, here's a variation, how about this, or how about this, or how about this? His creativity is so acute that it's pretty frightening, really.
He plays in that whole other tuning too.
Yeah, it's a new standardized. That's how we had to to do that. And it was early on before we actually even heard about that in, the magazine articles and
or
stuff.
social media.
So
Yeah.
then it reduced everybody down to 0 because then you couldn't just play all your licks and be fancy.
Yeah,
pants,
you can't just do a D chord. You're
Yeah.
like, where is
Yeah,
this
sit
on the
there,
neck
what?
now?
Yeah,
Yeah.
schematics and stuff, picking exercises and things like that.
So fascinating to hear that. I noticed too when you're kind of like when you were talking about teaching through the other eyes of a student earlier, and some of what you said there, and how it brings you more into the room of what actually is going on, and brings the past to the present.
Yeah, and some people, as great as they are as players, their teaching's not their art because they'll just like flash something at somebody or do this or get impatient with them. But you really have to, you just take a breath and you constantly remind yourself, or not constantly, but often, what it's like to not know this. You know what I mean? And you have more empathy for someone else, you know?
Yeah.
And it's not just about music.
No,
about
you,
life,
yeah,
too.
yeah. You could take all these lessons in music that you're doing, or art, and
Yeah.
you can apply it to daily conversations with the guy at the grocery store.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Your being, your awareness of another, and yourself,
Fascinating. Can you give us some music too, Brian? I know you're the first person to bring an electric gear setup, and which is perfect for what you do because your electricity almost channels like an acoustic when you get really cordial, and I can edit if you gotta take a moment to do stuff, but we can discuss your gear too here at the end because I want to speak about Ragnar here.
Hey, absolutely. Got to talk about that.
Oh, very nice,
Beautiful.
very nice.
Beautiful. What was that piece called?
Country song.
Country Song. Is that on one of your releases? We haven't talked about your releases yet.
No, I went to Andy Reid's studio, did a whole bunch of demos, and that was before COVID. So I've got like a whole CD that no one's really heard. So
And how many records do you have out now? And can you go through them year by year? What
okay,
are the names there?
sorry I don't know all the years,
Okay.
but I can tell you what they are.
Sure.
It's going to be Nozomi was first,
Yep.
and then The Journey,
The Journey. Yep.
and then I did another one that, let's see, okay, The Awakened Heart,
Yeah.
and then the last one, Two Steps Closer to Zen.
Beautiful. And as that on, can you get that digitally? Can our listeners listen to that online?
Everything except Zen is like just on YouTube, so I'm not on any other formats.
Okay, but they can get it on YouTube then.
Yeah, and they're all listed in like a playlist. So
So it would go to your name,
Yep,
and then that's
Which
how
is
you find it. Okay.
BRYAN.
BRYAN.
ROM Rombalski, BALSKI.
Yeah.
All right. I'll definitely add a link when we run the show too.
Okay.
And I noticed you're using your Paul Reed Smith right now. I did see you recently picked up a Jimmy Page Telly.
I got it here.
Did you bring it?
I brought it to show you.
Okay. They put out a limited edition Fender
Yep.
of the Tellys, and he surprised everybody online by saying, "Look what just came like a few weeks ago." So we're like, look at this.
Yeah.
Those are
We'll
pretty
get to hear it too.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Now, give us a little bit of the world style that you've been doing. And I don't want to. It's hard to explain to people that are just listening, but I know his 4 fingers are spread apart, and there's like tapping, harmonics. There's all sorts. He usually has a comp going on behind him by his band. The Bryan Rombalski band plays about every other week in Midland.
Yep.
Right now, every Tuesday or Wednesday.
Right now, we're playing the second Tuesday of the month at Witchcraft.
At Witchcraft, okay.
So a lot of what I'm doing too is like, okay, here.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example of one of the world music pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's definitely a blues feel to that.
Absolutely.
In a big way.
So I use a lot of fingerstyle patterns.
I'll never forget the first time seeing you when you went solo after the obviously the Midland Street shows that we saw. Most of us musicians that sit around, everybody's kind of jaw dropped going, where's this guy developing the bass, the harmonies, the melodies? And then out of nowhere, you were throwing harmonics in, and everything was floating in the room. And then your band just supported it. It was pretty amazing. Yeah.
So like marimba parts and things
Yeah.
like that.
Did you study the blues? I mean, Fred got to get it on with Lazy Lester here, and I'm sure that you got some blues stories that you could share.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
Well,
it was
being
part of the
in Toledo,
history.
there was a lot of blues down there.
Oh,
You know,
absolutely.
the Griswold brothers, and
Yeah,
I was their manager.
Yeah, so and when it goes back for me too is like old Fleetwood Mac with Peter Green. So like. So, I need your love so bad. All
Yeah.
those tunes, oh man.
Yeah, the real old Fleetwood Mac.
And also, where, okay, here's some Robert Johnson.
Thank you, Bryan.
Yes.
Using your fingers too. I think that's a discussion we had years ago. Derek Trucks using his fingers, and specific guitar players that wouldn't use a pick, bringing the warmth, immediate warmth, because you have no choice using flesh.
Yeah, and you're not strumming across. You're hitting all the notes at the same time. So like. And sleigh.
Bryan, you say you play every Tuesday night?
We play the second Tuesday of the month at Witchcraft. And then
And Witchcraft is where?
It's on Ashman Street in Midland, and it's really nice.
Is
place.
it a bar or what?
Yep, they'll have different
Witchcraft
Michigan.
Brewery?
Yep.
Oh, it's a microbrewery.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or they handle like beer from all over the state.
Okay.
Not just their own. They don't
Right.
make their own, or
Right.
it's just a bar.
And it's called Witchcraft.
Yeah.
Okay.
WHICH.
All right. Okay.
Witchcraft you want, yeah. But Nick, the manager there.
So there's not going to be any crowds with, burning torches or anything like that out there.
No.
It's a home of Satan.
I'm not doing any Sabbath or anything.
Not yet.
Yeah, we'll
Maybe
sneak
someday.
it in.
Yeah.
But the main thing of what we do too is we try to take tunes that people like, okay, here's instead of course you want to do originals, but here's how I thought I'd maybe try to do it since it's an instrumental band, I'll take a song that people will know, but I'll rearrange it. Like, can I give you an example?
Please.
Sure.
Okay, see if you. So that's your intro, then you got your verse. See if you know this one's got. Just a shot away.
Rolling Stones.
And then maybe in the end. So
Yeah, give me shelter.
Wow, it's totally almost unrecognizable.
Yeah, and then we do
Till you
like a
said
version
that,
of
yeah.
Stairway to Heaven, but as if it's like an Argentinian influence to it.
Wow. Have you ever heard of a group called Nouvelle Vague?
No, should I? Really good.
Well, they kind of do the same thing. I think it's maybe a French group, but they take well-known songs, by a number of different artists, like Echo and the Bunnymen or
Yeah.
Joy Division, and
cool.
change them into like a song, like into a samba, and
Yeah.
it's very interesting, and it reminded me of them as soon as I heard you. But theirs is maybe a little bit more recognizable
Right.
than what you were doing with "Gimme Shelter," which
Now,
is
can
probably
you-
my favorite Rolling Stones song
Oh,
of
cool.
all time.
Now, would you know this song? Just tell me, all right? So what you think?
There it is.
Right? If you're-
Woodstock.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
again. So,
I'm not a guitar player, and maybe a lot of people that are listening to this or will be listening to it maybe are not as well. What exactly are you doing, or how are you changing the song? Almost, I don't want to say drastically,
right.
but you're incorporating a lot of different things into it. How are you doing that, and what's the technique?
Okay. One of the methods is this. There's a classical composer. His name is Robert Fripp, and he wrote a beautiful tune. So I transcribed the melody from the piano, where it goes like this. Sorry, got to turn my volume up here. So that's his piece. And then I thought, okay, since he studied early Christian music, all right, like Gregorian chant, I needed a chorus. So instead of his piece being so elongated, I made it shorter, more like a pop song, all right? And then the middle section that I thought of for the chorus would be. This technique-wise, I'm using a percussive style. In West Africa, you'll see a lot of players using the thumb and the index finger. So instead of strumming downward, I hit the note and I pick upward.
There's those Floyd Kramer Grace notes.
Yep, and also the way you smack the strings too, and the spaces in between the notes give you a certain kind of rhythmic organization. So then the rest of that, during that song, that's how I use it. I go. You hear those little.
Yeah.
So. And then I use certain harmony that like Herbie Hancock would do with Miles Davis. So instead of doing like thirds harmony, regular chords, I would play stuff like this. Watch. So it's notes all stacked on fourths like a piano player instead of.
And this is the type of thing you'd be doing at Witchcraft?
All the time. Yeah. All the songs we do.
And this would be the second Tuesday, which, well, of course, no one's going to hear this in March. That would be
6 months from now.
That would be what? The second Tuesday would be maybe March 11th or 12th, something like that?
I'd have to look at mine.
Yeah,
Did
it's
you
got
play
to
there
be
this
one
week?
of the two.
We played, well, now we're edging the end of the month. We played the second Tuesday this month, so it'll be next month. We'll do this.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it'll be March 12th.
All right,
I'm
yeah.
trying to figure out
Very good.
this would be. Yeah, that's fantastic. And
Yes.
and your time that you're doing this?
7 to 9.
7 to
And I have,
9? End at
Carrie-
9?
Yep, 7 to 9.
Before
And
senior citizen curfew? That's right.
it works out better that way. I can break down all my equipment and get home, and I'm not all exhausted. Yeah. So.
Well, I love how you bring the inflections in to answering what Gary was asking you earlier, like to Give Me Shelter or something. It's like you decided to take it and utilize your different world music approaches to the chord pattern. So you take the chords and you put them into fourths, or whether it be a student thing on the guitar or a piano thing, but also with the sound.
Right.
You're incorporating the sound and your technique into it to make them individualistic, which I was trying to gather on the fly there, and
Thanks.
trying to
That helps me listening to your discussion.
Yeah.
I'm like, I get it. Okay. Yeah. But, to see it is to believe it. And,
Yeah, it's awesome to watch you
yeah.
play it.
Oh, thank you.
And you got a brand new amp made by Mr. Ragnar Avery over there.
Yep, Avery amps.
Avery amps.
Yeah, tube amp.
And you got, I think, a couple years back, just coming out of COVID. He built that for you.
Yes, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful, warm.
He's out of Kalkaska, Michigan.
Yep.
An amp maker and a photographer and
good
a former
human-
student of yours.
Yep, former student. He's a wonderful human being and just a wonderful photographer too.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to be kind of rewarding, that you have a former student is branched out, kind of probably very much inspired by what you taught him, and
Yeah.
then you get to work with him,
Yeah,
which
and then
is pretty neat too.
Then they go higher than you in certain aspects.
Well, that's okay though, right?
Yeah, I had one student,
you
he-
want that to
Yeah,
happen, really.
I had one student. He went on to Berkeley. Then he went to the conservatory. And he's a keto master, and he's a Zen Buddhist priest. And it's just some of the fascinating people I've met in doing this. You know what I mean? So, in turn, they kind of inspire you to try to keep. You know what I mean? Try to keep that ball burning.
Yes, indeed.
Speaking of your inspiration, when you sit down to practice, is that also a writing time, or is that a special, different time?
Well, it could be specific for certain things. It could be like, okay, the cycle. This is what from Gene, the cycle of fifths. So this kind of thing: C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, B, E, A, D, G, C. So that's all 12 notes.
Mhm.
All right. So then if I go, so I'm playing all 12 major 7 chords, like how fast, right? So then I'll do all the arpeggios. Then I've done all the major 7th arpeggios really quick. Then I'll go through minor 7 flat 5.
This is your warm-ups.
Warm-ups, yeah.
And that it sometimes inspires something comes out of it and it
Yep.
goes, this is a song, and I got to go
Absolutely.
that direction.
Yeah, or I'll take a tune like this, which you all know. Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I'll maybe go more like this with it. Let's see. Give me a quick second here. And I'll change the harmony a little bit and go. Now here. So then I'll use that choral harmony.
sunshine when she's got it. It's amazing hearing that. I can hear from the time I met you, like the Adrian Belew influence, the Peter Gabriel influence, the Talking Head influence, all the different articulations. So you can kind of take your personal jazz-inflected world music influence, and then you're adding those licks and pieces that bring people right into the zone of different eras
Yeah.
within that.
Yeah, and then also too, we don't want to exclude things, so it'd be kind of like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, you pull that pick out and you're right back to where you started way back
Yeah.
when. Your Van Halen licks and your
Yeah.
Zeppelin licks and your Sabbath and everything else that you got going on from your
Yeah, so you
pocket of the past.
can make it all hopefully come together.
Beautiful.
Yeah, wow.
Well, BryanRombalski.com. You have a website, Brian?
Nope,
No, it's just Facebook
it's in the making.
and
It's
Instagram.
just face.
Facebook and
Instagram.
And how are people getting a hold of you for lessons?
Actually, through those.
Word of mouth too.
Yep.
Okay.
And brbelieve@yahoo.com.
brbelieve@yahoo.com is the email address.
Yep.
Okay. Sanctioned away in Sanford, Michigan, one of our finest, purest talents of originality and
thanks.
deepest wells of music, is without a doubt in my lifetime era. Thank you for coming on our show, Brian.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. It was wonderful.
Thank
really.
you. Mucho thanks.
Oh, Dude.
On behalf of our hosts, this podcast wouldn't be here without generosity of the Bay City Historical Museum, which hosts the Rock and Roll Legends Hall of Fame. We'd also like to thank all of our guests, and especially to the listeners. The MMHP is found at 989.network, or where all podcasts can be found. You can find updated information as well as Dr. J and Sir Fred's Picks of the Week on Facebook. Also on Facebook, check out Mr. Mike's Local Music Live series and Scott's Mid-Mitten 15 from Harvest Canteen Studios, featuring one-on-one interviews with Michigan music artists. You can connect with Scott on the web at scottbakermusic.com, Dr. J at michiganrockandrolllegends.com, Sir Fred at fredrife.com, and Mr. Mike on YouTube as Mr. BT1. That's MRBTEE and the number 1.
On behalf of us hosts, Dr. J, Sir Fred, Mr. Mike, and myself, we'd like to thank Mr. Eddie Switek, the voice of the MMHP and the 989. No, this was
fine.
one of the most. I'm trying to rack my brain on what I forgot to ask you because there was so much going on at once. You know, it's a complexity when you get to town because it's like I've got a million questions for Bryan. Did I get through all of them?